Welcome. Before I introduce myself, I want to ask you a few questions. Do you have important relationships in your life you find challenging at times and don't always know why? Maybe this person just irritates you or frustrates you, or they know just how to push your buttons the right way. Do you find yourself responding to situations differently depending on whether or not you're stressed out and you can't figure out why? Are you sometimes at a loss with how to speak to your child and actually feel like they hear you? What would it look like if you could turn those frustrations and irritations into compassion and empathy? What would it look like if you could put on a new lens and suddenly realize that those that are closest to you aren't really trying to push your buttons at all? They're just showing up as they are, and it's nothing personal. The intention of this webinar is to introduce you to these possibilities and begin to give you the lenses through which to look at and view these relationships differently. And in doing so, find a greater connection with those who matter most to you and greater satisfaction and fulfillment in those relationships. I will not solve or give you the way to solve all of your relationship challenges. Extremely arrogant to promote that. If you walk away from your time spent watching this with some new insight and the ability to start looking at certain things differently and being curious rather than hurt, compassionate rather than judgmental, I will know that I've set out and achieved what I've set out to do. So let's get started. Welcome to It's Not Me, It's You, Demystifying Challenging Relationships. Overall intention is increasing harmony and connection in the most important relationships in your life. So my name is Amanda Schneider. I will give you some statistic or some information about me on high level, and then I'll tell you my real story. So I have over 20 years of experience in the corporate world, in the education space, entrepreneurship, and network marketing. I am the 2019 Bank Action Icon, and my husband Paul and I received the 2019 Power Couple Award, and I'm also an international speaker and trainer. I am a former classroom teacher, as I mentioned. I taught middle school and high school. I'm sitting on the board of directors for the FAM Pass, so I'm involved with the FAM project, and I am mama to 3 boys and 3 rescue dogs. I'm also a licensed and certified trainer in the bank code methodology as well as the CENTIP. I have my master's in education and undergraduate degree in business administration. All of that being said, let's get to the real reason why we're here. These awesome people in my life. I have been on a quest to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. Can anyone relate to that? And it all comes back to my heart and passion for teaching and my heart and passion for making a bigger impact in the world. And what's most important to me is reaching and impacting families and kids and helping them be more connected and more successful. Because if we have more connected families, they go out and make an impact on their communities, and that goes and spreads bigger. So this starts way back when I was in high school. My ceramics classroom was literally the only place I felt safe. I had a tumultuous life at home at that time, and we had moved around a couple of times, and I never felt like I fit in with any of my friends fully. Never had that safe place. Yet every time I walked into my ceramics class, I felt like I could take off that energetic armor and just be me. And Mr. Collins, my ceramics teacher, helped me feel seen and heard and gain confidence at a time that I did not have any. And I realized that's what I do today. I am passionate about helping people feel seen and heard and have a safe place to be. And what we're going to talk about today is very much part of that. So let's get started. All right. We're going to start with a little short video clip here. What's the name? Why is this called It's Not Me, It's You?
I'm sorry, George.
I don't understand. Things were going so great. What happened? Something must have happened.
It's not you. It's me.
You're giving me the it's not you, it's me routine? I invented it's not you, it's me. Nobody tells me it's them, not me. If it's anybody, it's me.
All right. George, it's you.
You're damn right it's me.
Look, I was just trying to,
I know what you were trying to do. Nobody does it better than me.
Well, I'm sure you do it very well.
Yes, well, unfortunately, you'll never get the chance to find out.
All right. So I've been working with a wonderful woman, Sophia, and this was kind of her, brainchild is this name. And I love it. It's partially meant to attract attention, be a little humorous, but really it's, meant to turn things upside down, because in relationships, we need to treat others according to the platinum rule. It's not treat others how you want to be treated. It really is about treating others how they want to be treated. So much like love languages, which I'm a huge proponent of as well, what we're going to talk about during this webinar is about looking at the values of the other person so they can feel more seen and heard. And I do love to have fun. We have enough stress in this world, so we got to have some humor and laugh where we can. So we'll have lots of that as well. All right. So let's get started with, if our intention is to increase the harmony and satisfaction in our relationships, perhaps we need to start with what makes a healthy relationship. And there's so many different ways of looking at this, and I'm by no means an expert in this area. Just life experience over here, and I'm by no means perfect. Yet I think we can agree that there's some areas that are critical, okay? So the first one is boundaries. Boundaries create clear expectations and ensure effective communication. They cover every aspect of your life, from physical boundaries, emotional boundaries, mental, your energy and time, material possessions. And honestly, for me, I never knew what a boundary was until about 10 years ago. And I could spend an entire year working on my boundaries. Extremely important. And for those of you, if this resonates with you, if you're like, I don't know, because when I learned about boundaries, I was like, I don't know what a boundary is. A good way to start cluing in to that is, where do you feel resentment? What triggers you? Where are you feeling some resentment? Chances are somebody has crossed a boundary for you. So lots of great resources out there. We could go all way into that, but boundaries make a very healthy relationship. Trust, being able to accept someone at their word, giving them the benefit of the doubt. I've heard this before as the spirit of generosity. Rather than assuming the worst in a person, you're trusting them and assuming the best. Talk to them first about your concerns and saying what you mean. Okay, so along with boundaries, if you can trust somebody, this means no passive aggressiveness. Say what you mean what you say. If you're talking to me, I can trust that what you're telling me is what you really mean. And that kind of leads into the next one, honesty. Being able to openly discuss issues and concerns, talking about things even when they're difficult. Having those difficult conversations is very important in terms of honesty. Respect. And respect covers physical, mental, emotional space, respecting a person's boundaries, even if you don't agree with them. Okay, one of the things that has come to light most recently for me in terms of having our own boys is, when I was growing up, it was a lot of like, go give Aunt Sally a hug. And even if I didn't want to, it was expected. You go give a hug, okay? And that, this kind of speaks with boundaries and respect. my boundary, even if I didn't want to, was pushed through because, you know, in that aspect, it was about respecting the person, okay? This is about a healthy relationship between, you know, a parent and a child. New thought that's coming out is, if your child doesn't want to give somebody a hug, it's okay. Respect that and hold that space for them. So support is another concept for a healthy relationship. Even if you don't understand, being able to support somebody with where they are, being able to provide them that support, that space. And this also includes active listening. We have these devices so much, our cell phones. There's so many distractions in this world. Being able to set that down and actively listen to the other person, again, these all kind of bleed into each other. It's respecting them, and it's also showing them the best support that you can. Safety. This kind of goes without saying. You know, we can be in terms of physical safety, emotional safety, never belittle another person, offer comfort during times of, you know, distress. I've been working through an application now, and the idea is when somebody's lid is flipped, when they're just not in their, you know, logical brain, you can't talk to them. It's just providing that safe space and being able for them to know that they can experience those emotions. You're safe for them to go through that process, okay? And compromise is another one. Willing to meet in the middle, or maybe if it's not in the middle, coming closer to. Being cooperative and flexible. Asking instead of just expecting, making big decisions together. I grew up extremely independent, and as we go through today, there are certain reasons why. This is a hard thing for me. I will make big decisions and want to make big decisions by myself. In a long-term committed marriage with my husband, I need to compromise that and get his input and value for the health of our relationship. So take a moment here, pause if you need to, and identify a healthy relationship in your life. One that meets most of these key areas. How does it look? How is your communication? And how connected do you feel to that person? So let's flip to the other side. What makes relationships fail? According to Psychology Today, they listed the following: trust issues, Mr. or Miss Right, or is it Mr. or Miss Right in that moment? Difference in priorities or expectations. Moving through life at different speeds. Compatibility issues. Communication issues. Narcissism. Relational abuse. Life habit abuse. Growing apart, which comes with boredom, staleness in the relationship, kind of being in a rut, and money issues. How many of these things can you identify that has challenged you in a relationship, maybe in the past or that you're currently going through? So I have some good news. What we're going to cover over the course of the next 30 minutes, we'll touch on all of these with the exception of narcissism, relational abuse, and life habit abuse. What we're going to talk about today, we'll touch on when you learn at a deeper level. We'll touch on all of these. All right. So again, the methodology we're going to talk about is called BANK, which I will talk about more momentarily. It's an acronym. It has nothing to do with a financial institution. It has everything to do with relationships. And what I want to show you is how this impacts everything from dating to marriage, parenting, and even friendships. Every relationship in your life. Because at its root, the bank code methodology, which we're going to talk about today, is about communication. And communication is a fundamental piece and part of every relationship. The Bank methodology is simply a lens through which we can better understand others, which ultimately impacts your emotional intelligence. So what is emotional intelligence? It is the ability to identify, understand, and manage your own emotions. So the green and the purple circles here, the self-awareness and the self-management. And it's also the ability to identify, understand, and influence other people's emotions, social awareness, and relationship management. So it's understanding and being able to manage yourself, and then also being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and understand them. And raising our EQ has many beneficial effects. Gives you a greater understanding of those around you, yourself and those around you. Helps with compassion and empathy. Builds stronger relationships. Allows you to be open for criticism and take it. Helps with better decision making. Helps control behavior, emotions. And really increases the positive interactions. So you can see how communication, health, relationships are all impacted by being able to raise your emotional intelligence. And we're going to introduce you to a way to do that today. So why are we looking at creating healthier relationships by looking through the lens of Bank? Okay, so first of all, Bank is simple to learn and it's really easy to apply. I'm a simple girl, I've got a busy life, I need things that are fast. And this is fast. While there are numerous stories from the effects of Bank on relationships, in particular, people have reported that it saved their marriage, made them a better parent, helped them find their partner, and even saved their son's life. I'm particularly motivated by this last one in the work that I do, with my past experience as both a classroom teacher and also my current role of mama to 3 boys. I live in the East Valley of the Phoenix metro area, and we've had an epidemic in recent years of teen suicide rates. Statistically, it's the boys that complete over the girls. I have 3 boys that are growing up and getting into middle school and high school. And their particular schools that they're going into have had 3 death by suicide in the last several years. So this is very close to me. So think about this. Individually, we value different actions and forms of communication. So let's say we have a family of 4, mom and a dad, 2 kids. Perhaps mom and dad and one of the children value similar actions, communication, behavior, and the other child is very different. They might feel that they're not seen and heard, that they're not understood, they don't belong. This could carry over into school, relationships with teachers, and it follows that there would be a disconnect there. The methodology that I'm going to introduce you to today has the power to shine a light on those differences, bring them to the surface, and show that all values and ways of acting and communicating are okay. If we can do more of that in our families, our kiddos are going to feel more seen and heard and feel connected. And ultimately, I believe we can have an impact on the teen suicide rates. Just a little aside as to why I'm so passionate about this. So let's transition now and get into the origin and the science behind the Bank methodology, and then we're going to finish up with what it actually is and how it works in relationships. So Bank has, again, nothing to do with the financial system. It's an acronym that stands for Blueprint, Action, Nurturing, and Knowledge. It has its base and roots in personality science. Personality science dates all the way back 2,500 years ago to Hippocrates. And in 460 BC, they figure Hippocrates is the father of medicine, the Hippocratic Oath, you may have heard of that. And he came up with a series of temperament. And what he discovered was he could take his patients, divide them up into 4 different groups based on their temperament and treat them differently. His names were choleric, melancholic, sanguine, and phlegmatic. I hope I'm pronouncing those correctly. Okay, So through the years, all sorts of personality assessments have been developed from that beginning. The 4 temperaments, they were the basis, and then now we have DISC, MBTI, colors, what animal are you? I'm thinking maybe you've taken at least one of these. And I'm gonna say, you know, we all have, you know, we love learning about ourselves. It's interesting, it's insightful. So bank code, again, same roots, and let's talk about how it was created. So Sherry Tree is the founder of the bank methodology. Its origin is in sales. Over 20 years ago, Sherry started in sales. She was really struggling, working to increase her sales, and she, you know, started studying under different coaches and reading books, and during that time she took all sorts of personality assessments. And she really got an understanding of them, and she asked herself the question, she's like, well, if there's 4 different personality types, would it make sense that something that causes one person to say yes to a buying decision would cause another person to say no? And it turns out she was correct. So what she did was, rather than looking at psychology of the person, she flipped it and looked at the biology. What values, what makes a person say yes to a buying decision? That was the creation and origin of bank code methodology. It has been scientifically validated by San Francisco State University in 2016. It's unique, and you can, in fact, predict buying behavior. Pardon me. Now, why am I talking to you about sales? We're here for relationships. In the end, sales is simply influence. If you are in a relationship, I would be willing to bet you are in sales. I was in several sales conversations last night with my boys around bedtime. So being able to predict buying behavior, or perhaps I want to replace that with buy-in behavior with the person that you're talking to, can lead to better communication, helping them feel seen and heard, and overall more harmony in your relationship. Because again, at the end of the day, it really comes down to communication. So I'm going to ask, what is your bank code? And I'm going to give you the opportunity at the end to discover what your bank code is. But there are 4, and all 4 in the specific order that they're in is important, because the first position of the code, whether it's BANK, which we're going to go through, is really who you are. The second position is who you want to be more of. So a person's first 2 codes in their bank code are really how they show up in the world. The third position is known as your stress code. So this is who you are when you are under stress. This comes to the forefront often. And depending on how well you have slept, eaten, how well you feel, it can come out in an okay way, or it can come out in a not so great way. And then your 4th and final code is your tripwire. This could be something that turns you off, that cracks the vial of vinegar. So before we get into the system of the bank code, and to create an analogy of the importance and what that vial of vinegar means, and the importance of knowing someone's full code, let's take a moment and reflect on the movie The Da Vinci Code. So in the movie, they had the cryptex. And the cryptex contained the secret to the Holy Grail, which was wrapped up around it was written on a scroll of papyrus and wrapped up around a vial of vinegar. And the whole premise of the movie was determining the correct code to unlock the codex to get to the secret of the Holy Grail. Because it was booby-trapped, if you put in the incorrect code, it cracked the vial of vinegar, dissolved the papyrus scroll, and the secret to the Holy Grail was forever lost. Drama. Major importance for cracking that or getting that code correct. So let's think of every person walking around with a tiny cryptex that has a message on it that contains the instructions of everything they need to hear to fall in love, stay in love, essentially feel seen and heard, feel loved, okay? But again, these instructions are booby-trapped, or surrounded by all of the baggage and the limitations of their views about themselves, their past relationships. What happens if you crack that vial of vinegar? What happens if you hit that tripwire? Okay, and this can happen early on in a relationship, and it can be enough to end before it even starts. Yet this can happen often, day after day in long-term committed relationships and between a parent and a child. This is where resentment can come from as source and can build up over time. So bank code is a very simple and fast way to learn how to respect another person and keep that vial of vinegar intact as much as you can. Obviously, we're human beings, we can't be perfect with this, but we can learn how to avoid it as often as possible. So let's get into the system that helps us unlock the proper code to that codex. Let's talk about the system of bank. System is an acronym, stands for Save Yourself Time, Energy, and Money. Rather than cracking the vials of vinegar, if you learn how to crack a person's code correctly, do you think it could save yourself some time, some energy, and some money in your relationships? I know that with two of our boys, before learning the bank code methodology, we were in a really tough spot, and we've spent a significant amount of income, money on counseling because we were trying to figure things out. Are things perfect now? Absolutely not. But now we have a new language, we have a new conversation, a new insight into understanding each other, and it helps us navigate our challenges in a much easier, effective way. And as we go through the 4 codes of bank, see what resonates with you. And see if you can recognize elements of a key relationship in your life, perhaps your partner or one of your children. Before we get into it, it's really important to note, again, these are values that we're talking about. This is not psychology hardwired. These are values, and values can change over time. So this is a fluid thing, if you will. So major life changes, loss of a loved one, death, divorce, those types of instances, loss of a job, can change the order of these and bring certain ones out. For instance, I'm going to give you my bank code action as my second code, A, that we're going to talk about. I grew up in a family that was pretty much the last code. And so every time I would express that part of me, I got, not in trouble every time, but I did get in trouble a lot. And so I squashed it down over time. Since I've learned the bank code methodology, I've realized that, hey, that part of me, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just who I am and how I show up. And that has been much easier expressed. And I feel a lot better being my true authentic self. So that's kind of one of the powerful things behind this. All right, let's get into the 4 codes. So the first one is blueprint. For each of these, I'm going to talk about the significance of the color, and then we're going to use the analogy of a box to help you understand more about it. So think of the color blue. The color blue is a more cool, reserved color. Blueprints, or Bs, as we can call them, are more formal, more reserved. If we talk about a box, they're inside the box. They really love systems, structure, the safety of the box. They might, time is a big issue. So they'll want to be early to an appointment or early to school, or being late can add anxiety. They'll appreciate, if you're of age, they're more budget conscious. They really want to stay within budget, minimizing risk, mitigating risk wherever possible. Very scheduled. Need to plan well in advance, safe and structured environment. An example of this is my youngest child. His first code is blueprint. And every night before bed, he lays his clothes out on the floor, his shirt, his underwear, his shorts, his socks. It's like this little person laying on the floor. Every morning I get him up, he gets up, goes in and takes a shower. He's very regimented and routine. We have a whiteboard with steps that we do in the morning. He loves checking them off. My husband, Paul, his third code is blueprint. So when he's stressed out, that's his stress code, that comes out to the front. My oldest son, his last code is blueprint. In fact, when we assessed him, he pretty much threw that blueprint card off the table. Rules, system, structure, does not like it. So when dad is stressed out, dad turns into black and white, strict enforcement of rules, does not bode well with Zach, our oldest. And so they can really ratchet up very quickly, and it can turn into a much bigger impact. Now that we know this, we can help diffuse the situation by recognizing where they are and honoring each other. Are we perfect every time? Absolutely not. It's still a daily challenge, but now we have the conversation and the understanding behind it. All right, our next code is action. So unlike the color blue, red is a fiery color. Actions are loud, they're enthusiastic, they want fun. They're not inside the box, they are outside of the box. Don't even put me near the box. They love spontaneity, freedom, flexibility. Rules are meant to be broken. They love, if they're adults, they love the more expensive restaurants, special red carpet treatment. They will pay attention to what you wear in some cases. For me, again, action, I'm very high. It is my second code, but I'm very high. Remember, your first two are how you show up. When Paul and I were dating, so Paul's last code is action. So that's his tripwire. High action, low action. When we were dating, I decided I was going to surprise him with a special getaway. And I gave him no details. Third code is blueprint, loves details. Gave him no details, surprised him. I said, pack your bag, we're going on a trip. And I could not for the life of me figure out why he was so grouchy. Well, he didn't have, so stress code came out. This was spontaneous, no planning. I hit every button, cracked that vial of vinegar. He was extremely uncomfortable. Risk came out, like, what's the risk here? What's going on? I don't have details. There's no planning. It took well into that first day for him to finally relax once he realized where we were going. Now, that could have been the end of our relationship. Luckily, he was very patient with me. It gave me another chance. Another example, when I learned about this methodology, I was so excited about it. Actions work on instinct. They'll just make a gut, like, instinct decision. I was halfway through the webinar and I'm like, I want to train this. I love this. I want to do this. And then I needed to make that decision with Paul, my low action husband. So we had to work through that and give it some time to make that decision together. So those are just a couple examples. All right, nurturing is our third code. So think of the color yellow being heart of gold, warm like sunshine, honey, sweet, okay? They're not inside or outside the box. They don't care about that. They want to recycle or repurpose the box. So nurturing types care so much about making an impact in the world. They want to leave a legacy. Relationships and communication are their currency that they work with. Okay, relationships are extremely important, that connection. They're the ones that love to hug. They, will choose that relationship above all else. Avoid conflict. Okay, so eye contact is important. They really need your quality time. So if you have a phone and you're talking to them, you need to put the phone away so you're not distracted. Some really love a lot of attention and physical affection. And it's, again, important to remember that these are guidelines, these are stereotypes, and it really is the first two. So for me, nurturing is my first. And I don't love a whole lot of physical affection because my action is second and I want to go. Okay, so again, the full order of the bank code comes into play there. So for me, when I learned this, was extremely impactful because my parents and my extended family are blueprint and knowledge, which we'll get to. And action and nurturing fall largely with the third and fourth codes for them. And I couldn't figure out why I felt like such an outcast. So I would show up at family gatherings and, you know, I'm a hugger. Everybody's got a hug. And it would just, I wouldn't get that same reaction. And I was like, what's wrong with me? And I took it personally. And again, it hurt my feelings. I didn't feel like I fit in. When I learned this methodology, it was like, oh, it's nothing personal. They just show up differently than I do. And that's okay, right? So again, a second example really quick. Aaron, my middle son, he is nurturing first. And my oldest son, Zach, got hurt recently and was really upset and holding his hand, and he was on the floor in the kitchen, and I just finished making Aaron's breakfast, and Aaron took his plate and he sat down cross-legged next to Zach and just needed to be there with him. And we finally got Zach up to the table. He started eating his breakfast, and Aaron comes over and he's like, "Can I give you a hug?" That child at 10 years old comes in every day, "Mom, how was your day? How are you?" And he genuinely means it. He needs that connection, okay? That's a nurturer in a child. It's beautiful. All right, our fourth and final code is knowledge. So think about the color green with the movie The Matrix, with the green numbers that go down on the screen, the green Excel spreadsheet logo, green. Knowledge are all about data, information, learning. They want to re-engineer the box. Okay, they want to make it better. They need to figure it out. They need time to do their research. Before they make a decision, they need to know that they are making the right decision. They're not big on big groups and gatherings. Small gatherings are okay as long as there's no small talk. They really want to talk big picture. Don't enjoy that idle chit chat. They can tend to be more on that introverted side, so make sure you give them their space. They love their gadgets and their technology. They will be on their phones playing a game, reading news, learning about something new, consuming more and more information. So again, that surprise trip that I took Paul on, knowledge being his first, he needed to know the big picture. He had no picture at all. So there was a big challenge there for him. So again, knowledge must be right. They're very logical and literal. So I am challenged often with needing to say things exactly how I mean them. And Paul, he'll continue to clarify and clarify, and I'm like, you know what I mean? And he's like, I do, but you need to say it the right way. That is knowledge in action. My dad, when I was growing up, I would come to him for help with my homework, and he would sit down, he's knowledge, and he would sit down and teach me 3 different ways to do the same problem. And I'm like, I don't care, Dad. I just want to get done. Okay, that's another example of knowledge. So what, now what? I've introduced you to the bank code, the system, a little bit about each of the 4 codes. Where do we go from here? It's time to crack your code. What is your bank code? If you go to this website on the bottom, crackmycode.com/commit2achieve, you're gonna see 4 cards. Each of those cards have 12 different values on them. So read through the values, sort the cards in order of importance to you, and submit. You will get a personality profile emailed to you from Codebreaker Technologies, which is the parent company that houses this virtual technology. And it's an interesting read. I encourage you, have your partner do it. Have your kids do it. There's a drop down on there where you can have icon cards and pictures if your kids are too young to understand the words. And you'll get some great perspective. So I want you to pause here and consider, how would your relationships transform if you understood each of these codes in a deeper way? What would happen if you learned how to communicate more effectively with each of those codes? What if you could understand the irritations and the triggers and avoid cracking those vials of vinegar and reducing resentment? What would it look like if you could practice learning how to communicate in a way that gives you insight into the code of the person who's in front of you? I would love to invite you to take the next step with me and register for Decoding Relationships. In Decoding Relationships, we're going to do all of those things. And after you're through, you will understand more about why looking through the lens of bank into your relationships can help improve that list of items that cause the relationship to fail that we started with. Remember those? Trust issues, having different expectations or priorities, moving through life at different speeds, compatibility issues, communication issues, growing apart, feeling bored, having staleness, money issues. During Decoding Relationships, we are going to take a fresh look or a new look at the basics of communication. We'll learn how to look at important people in your life through different lenses according to what they value. We'll begin to understand how different characteristics of the personalities may initially attract each other, then turn into irritation and frustration over time. We'll discover tools to smooth over discord and conflict and increase harmony in your relationships. We'll also practice conversations so you can start learning how to intuitively meet the communication needs of the person that you're talking to. It's highly interactive. Remember, I'm a former classroom teacher. I love conversations, holding space. The session work, there's session work in between the sessions to help root in the learning. And you'll be amongst a community of like-minded people who are learning this with you. So Decoding Relationships is 8 hours worth of content and interaction that's delivered virtually over Zoom. We use breakout rooms a lot, so we have small group discussions, larger group discussions, and it's delivered over 4 two-hour sessions. It includes an advanced bank code assessment, which takes about 5 to 7 minutes to complete. That will give you a more in-depth understanding of how high you are or low you are in the different codes, which again adds more insight. It also includes a free 30-minute coaching session with me at the completion to figure out, okay, this is what I've learned, this is where I am, where do I want to go from here? Decoding Relationships is normally $397. You register now, $99. So the registration process, simply send me an email at amanda@abundanceonpurpose.com. You'll select a session from the schedule, enroll, complete your advanced assessment, and then get ready to dig in and a deeper level and have some fun. So I want to thank you for your time. I know time is extremely valuable, crucial. I appreciate you spending this time with me. My mission is to lead leaders who are connected, compassionate, and authentic. When we can honor others by communicating with them in a way where they feel seen and heard, we can connect more deeply, feel more compassion, and show up as our authentic selves. Thank you.